As many of you know, the biggest television event this week happens to be the Republican National Convention in Cleveland. And it has been pageantry, but it's also been a lot of business. The business is conducted mainly by the delegates who are down on the floor in that mass of humanity that is either cheering or, in the case of last night, sometimes booing. But they're doing a lot of legwork too. It's conferences that they have to attend and various other events. It's 8:44. You're listening to News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We have a guest with us. Janice McGeachin is a former state legislator here in Idaho, and she is a Trump delegate at the Republican National Convention in Cleveland. Joining me, Bill Colley, this morning on Top Story. And first of all, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you, Bill, for inviting me to come speak with your audience this morning. It's been a great opportunity to be over here in Cleveland, firsthand witnessing this historic moment for our country.
You mentioned that, the history of it, because Laura Ingraham said last night that this is probably going to be the most important election in nearly 40 years. There
Yes.
are a lot of people who think that the fate of the country hangs in the balance. You've been a Trump supporter since early on. What was it that attracted you to the candidate?
Well, what I saw in Donald Trump was a strong leader who will work to change things, turn things around, make our country great again, and someone who will support law enforcement and make our country safe again. That's, I think, the economy and national security have kind of dominated the discussion. And what I see in the candidate, Trump, is that he's a strong man, a strong individual, a strong leader for our country.
Now, you referenced law enforcement, and I've noticed a lot of the speakers from the stage have been praising the law enforcers who are down on the floor. And we were just talking, we just had a sheriff's department captain from here in Twin Falls County in the studio with us a few minutes ago. In
Hmm.
Philadelphia, the Democrats are bringing in many people to speak on the stage who are family members of individuals like Mike Brown who were killed in police-involved shootings, but they are bringing in no family members of police officers who have been killed. And the police in Philadelphia are really beside themselves on this one because they feel it's a snub and it's a judgment on the work that they do every day. Are you getting a feeling from the law enforcement in Cleveland, and there's certainly a lot of it in the streets, that they're on your side or they're on Donald Trump's side?
Yes, I am. In fact, we heard comments, that with all the police officers and sheriffs and state troopers that are in Cleveland right now, we've heard comments to the effect that some of these people would be here, even if they didn't get paid for the job. That's how strongly they feel.
Now, last night, the big story coming out of the convention turned out not to be Mike Pence, but turned out to be Ted Cruz. And of course, some of
Hmm.
us who supported Ted Cruz at one point during this campaign are a little disappointed, I guess, that he couldn't say the words, if you will.
Right.
Uh, what was the reaction on the convention floor? I mean, other we heard the booing. I mean, I know some of that reaction was coming, but is there a feeling that Ted dropped the ball on this one?
I believe so. I've heard stories from both sides. But for me, when a person gives, it's all about integrity. When you give your word, then that should mean something. And when you promised at the beginning of the campaign that you would support the nominee, the eventual one, I expect someone to keep that promise. And so to me, it's really an issue of integrity. Um, when a person loses their integrity, that's hard to get it back. But we certainly were hoping that, we would have a stronger message from Senator Cruz. But this morning, I don't know if you've watched some of the programs on the news, but he actually he was interviewed before his Texas delegation. And I just got the sense that he was really on the defensive, trying to justify or explain um, his reasoning. And I can't help but think that, it's just, there's no excuse for working against whoever our party nominee is. Win or lose, we all have to stick together. And we have to have change. We can't allow to have just an extension of the last two administrations, and that's what we're going to see with Hillary Clinton. We have to stick together, and we have to enact change, huge change, as Governor
Huge.
Mike Pence said last night on the floor.
Well, it's not just Cruz, obviously, because I think that you've got Jeb Bush and you've got John Kasich, and Laura Ingraham was pretty blunt in saying you took a pledge, now honor that pledge, and it seems that pledge or not, a lot of these people have just decided that they're going to hide in the shadows.
Right. Well, one person explained this to me in this way, and it makes a lot of sense to me, is that in Washington, D.C., it's just like a big sandbox. And everyone goes over and they play in the sandbox. There's the lobbyists, there's the congressmen, there's the executive branch of office. And everyone goes over to Washington, D.C. to play in the sandbox. Well, what Donald Trump has done is he's come into the sandbox and he's kicking the sand all around. And people who just aren't quite sure how to respond to that because they're used to playing by a certain protocol and things working the way they expect them to work. But so many of us that believe that it just doesn't work anymore. Our leaders are not solving the problems that we're faced in our country today, with our deficit, our debt out of control, and our borders, total lack of border security, people who have lost so many thousands and thousands of people who have lost their jobs due to the excessive, cumbersome regulations and taxation and just government putting the clamp down on the engine of the American enterprise. And that's what we need to free up and put people back to work. Again, I really appreciate what Laura Ingraham said last night, in that there is dignity in every job that you do,
Hmm.
no matter what it is. And that's what we need to get back to in America.
Our guest is, of course, a former state legislator from here in Idaho, Janice McGeachin, and she is a delegate at the Republican National Convention in Cleveland, Ohio. And it's been somewhat contentious the last few days. And you mentioned some of the media coverage. I mean, obviously, I think we all feel that we're never going to get a fair shake from the mainstream media if you're a Republican. You're there. Are they getting it right, or are they obsessing about maybe one too many small things?
The media tends to distort the truth, especially the national media. And that's why it's so nice to have the opportunity to come onto the local stations and help portray a different picture of what's actually happening over here. Just as an example, the first day of the convention, there was a rule that came before the body that had nothing to do with the cruise delegates or the unbound effort. It was some rules that had to do with giving Republican states more credit in this nomination process if they have more elected Republican officials. For whatever reason, in the committee, it didn't make it through, so they made an attempt to bring it on the floor. And that's the democratic process. That's how things work. You either have the votes or you don't. They didn't have the votes. But, of course, people are passionate on both sides. And the media portrayed their headline, when we took a break and went to have lunch, the headline was, "Chaos breaks out on the convention floor. Civil war within the GOP." And we're just sitting there reading the words on the screen. I'm just like, wow, this is totally not what this was about. Because, again, it's a democratic process. You go and you fight for the things that you believe in, and you win or you lose. Some people are passionate, but that doesn't mean that there's a civil war within our convention. And then there were other issues as well, of course, with the speech that Melania Trump gave, and just the way they portrayed one. I actually heard Geraldo Rivera on TV try to claim that her speech was plagiarized because the tone of her voice and the cadence of her voice was so similar to Michelle Obama. And I'm like, wow, that's a bit of a stretch there, Geraldo.
I think he's
Um,
working for the wrong network.
yeah,
I
but I mean, I'm sitting there and I'm listening to her speak, and it's coming from her heart. She's a very eloquent, glamorous lady, and she's speaking the truth from her heart, how she feels.
I was reading, in fact, where Ron Fournier said it was an angry convention. And, I like the guy. I see him on Special Report, but every convention has those moments. It's about painting the opposition for what they are. Hey, can you take a quick telephone call?
Yeah, you bet.
I believe we have a caller with us. Caller at 8:53. You're on the air with Representative McGee, and go ahead. What's the question?
Yes, heard you talking about integrity. I'm voting for Donald Trump, holding my nose, but I cannot vote for Hillary. But Ted Cruz, when you call him a liar every 5 seconds, and talk about his wife, when Donald Trump's wife, they need to talk about her. You know, I, I agree with Ted Cruz. It was a great speech he made, and they're putting him down because of his speech. He didn't say one bad word about Donald Trump.
Well,
That's
go ahead,
that's
Representative. What's your take on that?
Well, I didn't. What I said is, and I'm being careful because I know that Senator Cruz won our state, and I know there's a lot of people that support Senator Cruz and his ideals I support as well. But what I said is that integrity matters. When a person makes a pledge, and he promised at the beginning of the debates that he would support the eventual nominee, that's what matters. That's what I was referring to.
Sure, sure. Well, the body
And
of his
that's what
speech.
I feel like, and a number of people feel like he has gone back on that pledge by not um, coming out and saying, I support the Republican nominee.
The body of the speech I thought was fine. It was that when he was getting to the end and it became apparent that he wasn't going to say we need to choose Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton, that's when I think things started to get a little unruly, at least from what I could see
Uh-huh.
on TV.
Well, and that's what I'm seeing from the delegation is each day that goes by. I mean, because we all have difference of opinions, we have different views, we loved different candidates. But as each day that goes by, I'm seeing more and more people getting excited and uniting together. The chants on the floor are USA, USA. We're patriots. We love our country, and we know what the risks are and what our choices are. And so I'm just seeing that, overall from the body. And Bill, you made a comment about how the media is portraying this as a angry convention. Well, that's so not true. You even mentioned before we came on the phone about seeing the vandal flag out there on the floor
Yes.
of the convention. We're having a great time. We're having so much fun out there. And each day that goes by, you see more and more signs popping out on the convention floor. So we're having a lot of fun. I think the Idaho delegation especially is having a lot of fun together, and we're being respectful of each other, even though, some of us have difference of opinion on the nominee. But I see more and more people coming together to support the Republican nominee, Donald Trump, because he is a strong leader who will surround himself with smart people. There's no way you can be a successful businessman and accomplish what he has and not be surrounding yourself with good, smart people. Be able to stand strong, have a vision for the country to turn things around and work to protect our nation. And the other thing I've seen that I'm so impressed with is his family. If anything, that those of us who call ourselves conservatives, things that mean something to us is our faith in God, our family, and our politics, our nation. Well, I'm just so impressed by his family. This is a campaign where his family moves together. He makes decisions in consultation with his children. And how many people really do that? Most people will go hire a consultant, a professional, to tell them the sound bites, but he actually calls his family together and listens to what they have to say, and he's given them a great education. He's disciplined his children. All of them were sitting back there tonight, very polite. Not one of them would you ever see, with their head down into their smartphone. They were very polite, listening and telling to all the people who made presentations. And I think we need to see more of that in our country. And I think it sets a good example of our leadership.
Representative McGee, we've got a hard break coming up, but I want to thank you. We'll let you get back to the floor, and I hope you enjoy that speech tonight.
Yeah, I sure will, and look forward to hearing what he has to say to all of us.
All right, take care.
It's
Safe
great to
travel.
speak with you, Bill.
You
Okay,
too.
take care.
Bye-bye. Janice McGeachin joining us on the line this morning from Cleveland, Ohio. We've got a break for news coming up. One more hour of top story as well.